Generally, if a woman decides to go into sports, it's a no-no and it's a negative approach. And
why?
Because it means you're masculine, it means you're aggressive, all those things that people connotate with not being a woman or a lady, and that's finally changing. People are starting to say, look, it's beautiful.
Women started to play professionally in tennis in the 1920s. They had to wear long, formal dresses while playing their vigorous matches. In the 1920s, women always had to look their best and present the most perfect image possible of themselves. Suzanne Lenglen was the first woman to be the #1 tennis player in the world. From 1921 to 1926, she won 8 Grand Slam titles, all while playing with dresses that touched the floor. When Billie Jean King was 12 years old, she played in and won a junior tennis tournament in Los Angeles. All the girls lined up for a picture, except King was asked to step out of the frame. The reason? She was wearing shorts instead of the traditional skirt. The Tennis Association did not want the world to see a young girl in what was known as a boy's outfit. Young girls across the globe were put under so much pressure to be perfect and feminine. To be discriminated against at such a young age impacted Billie Jean King to change her views on the world. Society could not handle a 12-year-old girl playing tennis in shorts, and that needed a change. The original 9 were formed when they all came together to compete at an illegal tennis tournament that was arranged in Texas. Instead of boycotting the 1970 U.S. Open, the original idea, they created their own tournament. The original 9 raised money to serve as the prize money, as well as secured their own tennis courts to hold the tournament on. The U.S. Lawn Tennis Association threatened to suspend anyone who played. 9 women stayed enrolled. Those 9 women ended up coming together and created the Women's Tennis Association. When Billie Jean King had the idea to create the WTA, she had only one reason to do so, which was equality. King, however, was completely unaware that male and female tennis players received different amounts of prize money. Each Grand Slam tournament awarded male tennis players with a much higher amount of money when they won compared to female tennis players. This was completely unfair and was solely based on the idea that men were better than women. The tournament, located in Texas, was put on by the Virginia Slim Circuit. The independent tournaments held matches from 1970 to 1995. People in the tennis world started to accept women's skill level in tennis. Society believed that women had amazing skill sets and talent. They did not compare women to men's ability as often.
Early 70s, when we started the Virginia Slim Circuit, we really didn't have any tournaments to play in. And Gladys Hellman went to Philip Morris and got Virginia Slims to sponsor us, and we started with $350,000 in 1971. And in 1984, we're playing for about $11 million. So that gives you an idea of the growth in money, and of course, the growth in participation has just boomed since the early 70s.
Billie Jean King, along with the 8 other tennis players that made up the original 9, signed a $1 contract to join the Virginia Slim Circuit in order to protest the inequality of the prize money awarded. This act of rebellion was huge in the road to equality, as women started to have the confidence in themselves that they really could change the world. Bobby Riggs, a 55-year-old former #1 tennis player, especially criticized women's talents in tennis compared to the talents of men in 1973. He is known as a male chauvinist because of his statements that women in tennis can never and will never measure up to men.
The best way to handle the women is to keep them pregnant and barefoot. This way, they don't worry about getting out in the men's world and competing for jobs and trying to get equal money and all that baloney. And they stay in their place and they help their men, and they're behind the throne, because I really believe, Giant.
You want them out plowing the fields, don't you, and just having kids?
The male is king, the male is supreme, and the women should know that.
On May 13, 1973, Bobby Riggs challenged Margaret Court, the #1 ranked female tennis player in the world at the time, to play a $10,000 winner-take-all challenge match. Court won 89 out of her last 92 matches when Riggs proposed the idea of them competing, hence the start of the battle of the sexes. She accepted the offer. Court devastatingly lost the match 2-6, 1-6.
Here to Margaret Court with Bobby Riggs applying the pressure.
Match point. There it is.
Bobby Riggs wins 6-2. 6-1. Unbelievable.
Court had barely prepared for the match as she had to raise her baby. Being a woman held her back in her career substantially. She had to prioritize her child instead of training for the match. In the 1970s, raising children and supporting their husbands was the only thing women were thought to be good for. Society believed that they had no place in the workforce, let alone in professional sports. After beating Margaret Court, Riggs proposed an offer to Billie Jean King, this time for a $100,000 winner-takes-all match. Seeing how Court lost and how the equality movement of women was on the decline, she accepted. Bobby Riggs made an entrance wearing a Sugar Daddy jacket as well as carried an oversized Sugar Daddy candy, which was his sponsor. Billie Jean King entered on the throne of Cleopatra, carried by 4 shirtless men. Billie Jean King defeated Bobby Riggs 6-4, 6-3, 6-3 in the 1973 match. Taking place in the Astrodome, it had a massive historical significance. The battle of the sexes determined if men really were more athletic and skillful compared to women. King won $100,000 for her victory against Riggs.
Not expected by most. A night in which Billie Jean King has thus far dominated. Just as you... It is over. Let's watch Bobby Riggs.
To King in the original 9, it was not about the money, but the huge leap in feminism it would have. Because King had won the match, women aren't thought of as less important or less strong as often. If King had lost the match, it would have confirmed what society had already thought of women as: submissive, petite, and weak. The commentators on female tennis players' matches state that female athletes with more masculine, muscular features are not real women. The recurring toxic stereotype of women always having to look tiny influenced the commentators into ridiculing them. On the daily, women outside of tennis as well would have to go through being disrespected just because they didn't fit the stereotype. Because they looked more manly, they were not treated with the respect and admiration they deserved. According to the majority of people that kept up with the Ash Connors Wimbledon final in 1975, they said commentator Lorge would get the gold medal for his analysis. Lorge's analysis was sugar-coated and biased. Although both Arthur Ashe and Jimmy Connors were extremely talented tennis players, this specific match lacked skill and strategy from both players. Lorge still took it upon himself to make the match seem full of skill and talent. He wanted to make the men look good, even though they weren't playing their best. With the female tennis players, however, the commentators didn't feel a need to paint the bad tennis in a positive light. Starting in the late 1980s, commentators in tennis started to comment on the female tennis players' strategies, their inquisitive approach to their craft, and how exactly they executed it. Modern commentators knew more about the game, and not just the women's social life and appearance. They educated themselves more on what really makes up tennis talent and the skills it takes to be successful. The tennis commentating world is evolving into supporting the equality of men and women. They no longer objectify women as much as they used to, or shame their talent just because of their gender. The world was and is still changing, but for the better. Because of their sacrifices, we have tennis stars such as Serena Williams, Venus Williams, Naomi Osaka, Ashley Barty, and so much more. Because of the original 9, the Battle of the Sexes, Billie Jean King, and every female tennis player that has stood up for their beliefs, women all across the world are empowered, inspired, and encouraged to stand up for themselves. Women have the freedom to choose their own path. The ball's in their court now.